Can anyone hear me? Um, okay, there we go. Wow, I thought it's all right. Hello, everyone. Can everyone can hear me? Just type in the chat box or the chatting area that you can hear me because I'm just got it was set up, but there were some issues, technical difficulties. So if you can hear me, please go ahead and type something in the chat box, text box. So go ahead and let me know if you can hear me or you can't hear me. Let me know. Just go ahead and type something in the chat, letting me know that you can hear me. Okay, you can hear me. Okay, that's great. That's great. And you can see my screen also, hopefully. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And today's session will be about MVVM design pattern and using MVVM with SwiftUI. But a little bit about my introduction, a very quick introduction. My name is Mohammad Azam, and I'm an iOS developer as well as a Coding Bootcamp instructor. Currently, I work for Digital Crafts, but apart from that, I also create a lot of different Udemy courses. So you can see a huge list of courses that I have done, mostly related to iOS development. And you can also check out, if you go to the home page, you can check out this deals link because there is a deal going on right now, and you will be able to get most of these courses for a very, very good price. That's basically the bottom price that you can get. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and start. Okay, let me go ahead and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that the text is a little bit bigger. Okay. So what we're going to be building will be, we will be taking from a JSON API, meaning the JSON result, and we will use the MVVM design pattern to put something on the screen. And that's it. All right, and we'll be using SwiftUI in this case. Now, if you do have any question, you can write down the question in the chat window and I'll be more than happy to answer those. But before we even begin, I think the first question we need to answer it is, what exactly is the MVVM? What does that even mean? All right. So in MVVM, you have a couple of different things that you need to understand. M, V, and VM. So M over here starts or deals with the models. This is kind of like our domain model, which consists of all the business logic. So that's the domain, that's the model. View is something that you see on the screen. So in your iPhone application, this can be your iPhone screen. In your Mac application, it will be Macintosh, I mean the Mac OS screen or whatever the application you're working on, and that's it. I mean on watch application it will be whatever you would see on the watch. The view model is the one that is the most people have difficulty understanding what exactly is the view model. So view model is something that is going to be providing the data to the view. That is the job of the view model. All right. So that is the only job of view model, to provide the data to the view. So the view might need something, and it is the job of the view model to provide that to the view. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at our application, what we'll be building. This is the JSON that I'll be using. It's on my own server, or it's on glitched server, but you can see that it's basically returning you some stocks information. And these stocks are like consist of the symbol, description, price, change, historical prices. We don't really care that much about all of that stuff. We only care about the symbol, description, and price. So how can we use our MVVM design pattern to get this information and then put it on the screen? All right. So let's go ahead and do that. In order to get this information, we need to create some sort of a API that is going to fetch this information and then populate our models and then display it. So going back to our code, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a new file, and I will call it web service. Now, by the way, at this time there's a storm outside, so if I don't have any electricity, then I'll let you know that we'll have to end the session. But right now, everything is fine. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a web service class, and that will be responsible for loading the result from the JSON, all of this stuff. I'm going to go ahead and create a function called, let's say, load stocks, but you can obviously call this function anything you want, which is going to take in a particular URL. And it is going to return me an array of stock. Now, what exactly is the stock? That is our model that we'll have to use. We have to create that model. So I'm going to go ahead and create a model, which will be stock. These models in different paradigm or different programming languages, different platforms, these are also known as the DTO model, which are not really the domain models. Now, in our application, the domain model is actually on the server. All right. So this is just a client-side DTO model. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and create a stock, which is decodable. And the reason that I'm creating this stock model is because from the server, we are getting back the JSON result, and we want this JSON result to be mapped to something. And that something is our stock model. So that's why we have the stock model that I've just created. I'm going to make sure that this particular stock model consists of the same exact properties, symbol, description, and price. So let's go ahead and type in symbol and description and also price. You can also say the decimal or double. You can use double for this. We're not really doing any kind of a calculation with the price, so double would be okay in this point. You don't have. You can use decimal also. Okay. Next up, we can go into our web service and we can make sure that we are loading that. Now, I'm going to use the async and await feature. So I'm going to use async throws, which basically means that I'm going to write some async code in there. So URL session.shared.data, and I can use the async and await feature just by passing in the URL. So whatever URL that you're passing, I'm just going to use that. And this function data is an async function, so I have to await for it. It can also throw an exception, so I have to use try also. And eventually, I will get a tuple of data or response. So this is kind of like the new syntax. It was introduced, I think, last year in Swift 5.5 or something, and it allows you to use async and await features. Now over here we can check for a couple of different things. I can check that if the HTTP response, if the response is actually the type of response that it's getting is HTTP URL response, and we also need to make sure that the response that we're getting, the status, is actually 200. If it is not, then we will throw a network error, bad request or something like that. We don't really have anything called network error, so that's just some enum that I can create quickly. It's basically an error, and we can say bad request. All right. However, if nothing is bad and everything is coming out to be good, then we want to decode it. So JSON decoder.decode, and we can decode our decode to array of stock from data. All right. And this is going to give us some sort of a decoding. And it will decode, and we will simply return it back to the caller. Whoever is calling, we're just going to return it back to them. So hopefully this function will allow us to make a request to the URL, which is this URL, and get these stocks, like 4 or 5 stock with some random price, and then return it to the client. Now the question is, who is the one calling this web service or the load stocks function? And that is where the view model will come into play. The view model will be responsible for calling the web service, getting all the data, and then giving it to the view so the view can display it. Currently, if you see on our content view, we have nothing really going on. You can see it's completely blank. Now, usually what I do is I try to create one view model to represent the entire screen. So what view model can we create to represent the entire screen? And this can be up to you, whatever name you suggest. But I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new view model, and I would call this stock list view model. And the stock list view model would be representing all the stocks, everything that happens on the screen. All right, so everything will be represented by the stock list view model. So stock list view model will be responsible for providing you the data to put on the content view. So let's go to the stock list view model. I'm going to go ahead and create a class, stock list view model. This is our first view model, and we are going to be also using or conforming to observable object. Now you might be wondering, hold on a second, why did you use a class? Why can't you just use a structure for stock list view model? Well, the reason that we're using a class and not a structure is because if I go ahead and use a structure in this case and try to build it, it's going to complain and it's going to tell me that the observable object protocol is only can be applied on a class and not a struct. And that is the reason that we are using a class. The other reason that we are using the other thing that you might notice is that I'm using observable object. Now, this basically means that there will be some properties inside stock list view model, and I will assign those properties and the view will update itself. You will see in a minute that what is going on. So inside the stock list view model, I'm going to go ahead and create another function called populate stocks. Okay. Now inside the populate stocks, I can go ahead and call our web service. There's only one function in web service, and you have to pass in the URL. So I'm just going to pass in the URL over here. I think I have to get the URL from somewhere. So let's go ahead and get the URL. There we go. Now, since the load stocks function is an async function, and you have to await for it, I have to mark this as async function also, because I have to await for it. And since the load stocks can also throw an exception, I have to use try await. And I cannot really use try like that. I have to put it inside a do. I mean, if I have to catch the error, right? So I have to put it inside a do. Let's go ahead and format this out a little bit. Okay, so this is going to give us the stocks, because the load stocks is going to fetch the array of stocks, and it's going to give us a stocks. If there is any error, we can simply print out the error. All right. Now the stocks over here that you're getting, this is not really a view model. This is kind of like a DTO object, a data transfer object, a client-side model. You shouldn't be giving this model or this array of stocks directly to the view. And the reason that you shouldn't do that is that these stocks model can change a lot, because maybe you will decide that, hey, instead of sending only the stocks, maybe we should send this back and that back, and the highest price and the lowest price and the best time to buy and the bid and all of that stuff. And these, the whole architecture or the properties are going to be changing. So what we will need to do is to create a view model that is going to represent the individual stock on the screen. So if we go to the content view, if the whole screen is represented, over here by the stock list view model, then each of the individual stocks will be represented by its own view model, which we'll have to create, which we don't have. All right. So let's take a question. The question is it a correct step to have the URL there? Yeah, I mean, we need a URL to fetch the stuff, so that's why we're using the URL. So that should be okay. Now, I'm just putting the URL over here. You can put the URL in a constants file or some other file and make sure that the URL is, correctly formed and everything. But I know that the URL exists, so that's why I'm forcefully unwrapping it. So no issue over there. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and create a view model which is going to represent individual stocks. I will call it stock view model. This is the individual stock. This is going to represent each stock. Each stock will be based on the model or the DTO object that is coming from the server. So based on one of these stocks. So in order to create that, you must pass in the stock. This means that we will need to create the initializer in it, and we have to assign the stock. You can see that I have made sure that this property, which is our DTO object, is actually marked private. And the reason that I'm making sure is that I don't want the view to access it. I only want the view to deal with the stock view model, because the stock view model will be responsible for providing the view with all the data it needs to display. So that's why we're creating this stock view model, which represents each stock. So I will write right over here, stock view model represents each stock. All right. Now, in the stock view model, we still have to create some properties, and this is completely up to you, whatever the name you want to give your property, and you will simply go ahead and return the values from the stock that is being passed to you. So I'm going to go ahead and say price. If you want to display the description, then you can also display the description. I don't care that much about the description, so I'm not even going to handle it. And I think that's another good feature of using this view model approach, is that the server is actually sending me a couple of different things: the symbol, description, price, change, historical prices. And these are the three things that I'm mapping into my DTO model. But the view model is like, well, the view doesn't really need a description, so I'm not even going to send you the description. All right. All right, let's go ahead and build it. Okay, so going back to our populate stocks function. Now over here, we're getting array of stocks. I cannot really do anything with it. I have to create an array of stock view model. So let's go ahead and create an array of stock view model right there in the stock list view model. I'm going to go ahead and create a property called stocks. which will be an array of stock view model initialized to be empty. And I'm also going to mark this with published. So publish is a property wrapper in SwiftUI. And what happens is that whenever you mark something as published, and which is inside the observable object or a class that is conforming to observable object, whenever you assign something to stocks, it will publish an event, and that event can be captured by the view, and the view can refresh itself. So now we have these stocks, which is an array of stock view model. I cannot really go and do this. If I go ahead and do this, this is not really going to work. And the reason it's not going to work is the stocks that we are getting from the web service are of type stock. But the stocks we have are of type stock view model. So, the types are completely different. So that's why it's not really going to work. Somehow we need to convert this stock into an array of stock view model, which we easily can. I can go over each of the array of stock, and for each stock I can call stock view model dot init, which basically means that I'm going to go over each of the stocks, and for each stock that I'm going to get, I'm going to call this particular constructor or initializer, creating an instance, an object of stock view model. So in the end, we will end up having array of stocks or array of stock view models, which right there is going to be an array of stock view model. All right. Now, one of the things to be very careful over here is the property stocks is marked with published. And whenever you have a property that is marked with published, you always have to make sure that that property is set on the main thread. Now, that's not that hard because we can simply go ahead and say dispatch queue.main.async and make sure that is set on the main thread. All right. And that's it. So this will be our stock list view model. If we call the populate stocks, then it is going to fetch the stocks and it's going to populate our stock view model array. But we still need to display it on the screen. So let's go back to our content view. And inside the content view, now we can go ahead and create an instance of the stock list view model. View model equals to stock list view model. But since the stock list view model is decorated and is using observable object, we have to use state object over here. State object is another property wrapper that is available in SwiftUI, and it allows you to listen to those events that are being emitted by the publish properties inside the stock list view model. So you can see that inside the stock list view model, we are setting the stocks on line number 20. Since stocks is marked with published, it's going to emit an event, and that event can be consumed by the view. We still need to call our populate function for this to work. So instead of using a text over here, probably we should be using something else. I'm going to go ahead and use a list and passing in the data, which is vm.stocks, which is viewModel.stocks, and the identifier, something unique about the stock will be the symbol of the stock is unique. And next, and finally, we can go ahead and print out the name of the stock. Well, the symbol. We still have to make sure that we should call the populate stocks function. We haven't really called the populate stocks function, which means that the stocks will never be populated, never be fetched. If I run the application right now, you're not really going to see much on the screen. You can see that I'm running and nothing is going on. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we are calling the populate stocks function. And there are multiple places where you can do that. So one of them is on appear, which means that whenever the list appears, go ahead and call populate stocks function. But this is not going to work. And the reason it's not going to work is that the populate stocks function is an async function. And right now, inside the on appear, you are not inside a async context. So you can't really do that. All right? Because eventually when you're calling populate stocks, you will have to await for it because it's an async function. But you can't await over here. And the reason you cannot await over here is that you are not inside the async context. Now, you can get around this by wrapping this with a task modifier. And now you have created that async context and now everything will work. But instead of doing all of that stuff, maybe we can look into something, a closure that already contains async context. So instead of using on appear, if you want to perform some sort of async operation, maybe you should look into the task modifier. The task modifier, as you can see, is already consists of the async closure, so you don't really have to use something else. You can simply go over there and await for the populate stocks to call. So that task modifier is also something new that was created or that was available in Swift and in SwiftUI. I think it's in SwiftUI 2. Let's go ahead and run this now again and see if we are able to fetch the stocks. All right, nothing, we don't really see anything at this point. Probably we have done something wrong, but no, here we go. Here we go. It actually displays the stocks. You can see the stocks over there, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and Tesla. We are only showing the name of the stock right now. If we want to show the price, we should be able to do that. Let's go ahead and put it in a horizontal horizontal control or edge stack. And let's go ahead and display the price. So stock.price. Now this is not a good way to display the price. So I'm going to say stock.price. And the reason it's not a good way to display the price is that it's not localized. So anywhere you go, it will always show you the dollar sign. So even if you're in a different market where you don't use dollar symbol, it will always show you that. So that's never really a good idea, right? So how can we fix this part? Well, we can create an extension, and probably we should create an extension in a different file. And we will say format as currency. This will return you string. And we can go ahead and create a number formatter. The number formatter, and there are many other kinds of formatters, they will always rely on the locale, meaning since I'm in US, it will always use a dollar sign or those kind of numbers, as well as if I'm measuring something, it might be coming out as like miles or meters or something like that. So it will always be using the locale. Formatter dot style, I believe, number style. I always forget what it is. Here we go, currency, and formatter dot total number of digits, or I always forget what these are. Decimal. Yeah, see, I forgot actually what is the number of digits to show. I always forget these things. Generate number something, maximum fraction digits. Let's go ahead and go with 2. And now we can do formatter dot string, and we should be able to pass in the the double, I guess, which is self in this case, and we will return it. All right, and optional, there we go. All right, and now we can use this format as currency. So let's go to our stock.price.format as currency, and if I run the same app in a different in a different place, different market, then it will adjust itself. Instead of showing the dollar sign, it will show you the euros or pesos or whatever, wherever you are. All right. So you can see that we are able to display the, the text over here, meaning all of the stocks, as well as the actual price. Now we can also add a navigation bar if you want. So let's go ahead and add a navigation bar just to make it a little bit nicer, I think. We will embed a navigation view. And let's see if we can actually add some sort of text over here somewhere. Navigation title, we will just say stocks. All right. So there we go. It displays the stocks values and everything. And we used MVVM Design Pattern to accomplish that. Let's see what else we can do. I think there was something called pull to refresh, and I forgot what it's called actually, Refreshable. All right, so Refreshable with an action. So this one is, we can also call the same thing, Populate stocks. Refreshable is basically a new feature that was introduced, I think, in the last SwiftUI, and basically it allows you to do pull to refresh. So let's see how that actually works, making sure that you understand that all these prices of the stocks are fake and random. So if the refreshable is working, then we should get probably a new price. Okay, hopefully we'll get it. Okay, here we go. Yeah, Google was 438, now it's 251. So you can definitely see that Refreshable is actually refreshing and giving us the right data. There we go, 465, 427, and so on. So using this, we can also do pull to refresh. And that is pretty much it. I mean, you can see that how MVVM Design Pattern helps you a little bit in this case, because we haven't really done anything complicated, but it allows you to create those layers, and your UI can depend on a particular model, so that model can provide you the data that you want to display on the screen. And using our web service, which fetch the information using the async and await the new features that was introduced in the new version of Swift. So we were able to build a complete application using that. All right. Now you can always go back and check out the application in a different mode also. This has nothing to do with MVVM, by the way. I mean, if you want to look at your application in a particular environment, meaning how your application will look like in a particular theme, I think it's called a color or something, color scheme, you can do that. So that's one of the good things when you are using, here we go, you can see at the bottom, you can also see your app in the black theme, how it will look like. It will look kind of like this. And you can also see the same application, obviously running in the light theme. So Xcode Previews also helps you out over there. Now, in a much bigger app, you may end up with like a lot of different view models. But one technique that I've learned, which will help you always, is creating one giant, not giant, but one container view model for one screen. And the reason is that if you have one container model that is covering the entire screen, then it will always give you the flexibility for you to go back and add or remove the stuff from the view model. Now, this particular container model, which in this case is stock list view model, can have other child models, which I do. I have a array of other models also. All right. So try it out. Hopefully, you'll be able to create much bigger apps using the MVVM design pattern. And please understand that this is just a design pattern, and there are many other designs pattern. There is a Redux pattern also that you can use with SwiftUI. You can use MVC also, but the declarative nature of the Swift and SwiftUI, it kind of nicely blends to use these kind of MVVM models. All right, but that is pretty much it. Thank you everyone for coming. And once again, let me double check it over here. Once again, if you are interested, if you like this video and you're interested in my work, then definitely check out my website. It's azamsharp.com, and there's a deal going on right now. If you go to the deals, you will be able to check out all the deals. Actually, you can see all the different courses that are on sale right now that you can check it out. This is a pre-WWDC sale that I'm doing. So if you want to check out any of these courses, that will be great. But that's pretty much it. Hope you have enjoyed this, and hope you now have a little bit more better or a clear idea, clear understanding of MVVM design pattern. Hopefully in the coming weeks, I'll come up with a brand new live stream. Maybe we'll cover like core data or even augmented reality and these kind of things. We'll definitely cover these things. Those are all fun topics. All right. But that is pretty much it. Thank you everyone for coming. Hope you have enjoyed it, and hope this was informative for all of you. All right. Thank you so much. Any questions? You can type in the question in the chat window, and I can answer if you have any questions. All right, everyone. If you don't have any question, that's fine. If you come up with a question, you can also follow me on Twitter, by the way. You can simply follow me at Azam Sharp. That is my Twitter. And if you're following me on Twitter, I post a lot of stuff about programming and all that stuff, like maybe videos and YouTube channels and all that stuff. So you can definitely check that one out. And that is pretty much it. Again, thank you everyone for coming, and hope you have enjoyed this live stream. And we will come back hopefully next week with a different, or next week or in the coming weeks with a different topic. And once again, thank you everyone for coming.